everything you've heard from the RBI, board meet, and there are a lot of complicated details that I might not want to get into right now. Television is not the ideal place for complicated details, but I want you to help us understand this. Do you believe that by creating committees, as the government has the finance ministry got its way, or has the RBI managed to retain its independence?
Well, first of all, let me say that the conflict of view between the Reserve Bank of India and government is neither uncommon nor is exceptional. There is a basic difference between their mandate, and the conflict arises because they have different dharma. Reserve Bank dharma is to maintain price stability, whereas the dharma of the government is to accelerate the growth. So whenever there is a conflict, and that inevitably happens, there's no exception at all. So whenever there is a conflict, it should be resolved through consultation and collaboration. And I'm very happy that this marathon meeting of 9.5 hours settled many issues amicably after a very, very long meeting. It's not completely clear as to what are the final decisions. All the decisions, it's not clear at all, but whatever sketchy details are available tell me that it has been very positive and they have found the middle ground. Most important thing is that the possibility of resignation of Governor of Reserve Bank of India, which was talked about, is no longer there, because had that happened, it would have given a very bad signal to the international financial community. And the fact that we have been able to avoid that clearly shows that this meeting was a great success.
Just one second. Let me take this back to Dr. Jadhav. Dr. Jadhav, you had a point to make. Go ahead. And my viewers would be interested. I just want to boil down this conversation to make it simpler. Is the RBI's independence intact, Dr. Jadhav?
Okay. One has to make a distinction between
Dr. Jadhav.
Okay.
Dr. Jadhav, go ahead, please.
Okay. One has to make a distinction between independence from the government and independence within the government. What RBI is seeking, as far as I understand, is independence within the government, which means that independence from the government would mean that RBI telling the government, you do what you like about fiscal policy and we will conduct the monetary policy on our own and you should not interfere. On the other hand, more desirable alternative is independence within the government, which is operational autonomy. The overall broad macroeconomic framework is to be decided by the government of India, by the elected representatives of people, and within that broad framework, RBI should have autonomy of functional autonomy, operational autonomy. That is really an issue, and that is what is being encroached upon. Second point that I want to make is that there was a talk, a colleague talked about RBI giving entire profits to the government of India, and that decision is valid and that continues to do so. This happened at the time when Governor was Raghuram Rajan was the governor, and that continues so. The issue about reserves is that what is the optimal level of reserves? Now the total reserves that RBI has is about 9,31,000 about 9 lakh crore, 9.5 lakh crore, out of which two sets of reserves are very important, bulk of them. 96% of the reserves come from two categories. One is currency and gold revaluation reserves, and the second is contingency fund. Both of these constitute 96% of the reserves. Now, contingency fund. Take the case of contingency fund. What RBI has been doing so far is from the profits generated, a large part is transferred to the government and part of that has been was transferred to contingency reserves. That decision has now been changed already 1 year back, and now for the foreseeable future, every year the profits of RBI in entirety, without addition to the contingency reserves, would be going to the Reserve Bank of India. So there is no change there. The excess reserve issue is that there is no established norm of what is the ideal ratio of RBI reserves to RBI assets. Today they are 28%, 27, 28%, and there is a view that they should be about 14%. But there is no sanctity to that. And therefore, appointing an expert committee, a high power committee, to look into what is the optimal level of reserves is a very, very valid decision that has been taken in this meeting.
One of the comments which the governor made today.
Adequacy and not the liquidity.
No, just allow Sugata to finish speaking, please. Go ahead.
No, I was told that one of the comments which the governor made today in the course of the board meeting is that we don't want to water down rules because it would send a wrong signal. So he is not in a mood to dramatically reduce capital adequacy ratio of banks.
Dr. Jadhav, go ahead.
Thank you. I have a number of small points to make, beginning with the last point. Tinkering with the prompt corrective action would question the credibility of the Reserve Bank of India. And therefore, apparently what the governor has said is correct. He was not willing to drastically or dramatically change the prompt corrective action framework because it was put in place first of all to contain the large and growing NPAs. So that's one point. There was another point that was raised about, is the governor of RBI above the law? No such thing. There was a question about accountability of Reserve Bank of India. I believe that accountability of Reserve Bank of India is there within the legal framework that we have. In addition to that, the Reserve Bank governor is often summoned by the finance committee of the joint finance committee of the joint standing committee on finance. Parliament is the one which is supreme, and RBI governor can be called and is called very often to testify before them. So accountability is there. The third point, it was also said that the board, RBI board, is supreme. That's just not true. RBI board is an advisory board. It is not the decision-making board. It is essentially an advisory board. And therefore, some of the decisions which were made in the board meetings about the panel formation, etc., I think that does amount to encroaching on the autonomy of the Reserve Bank of India.
Well, Dr. Jadhav, I have one more question for you. If we look at the people on the board at this point, the people who make up the RBI board, we know that 5 of them are the governor and the deputy governors. There are 5 people, 7 actually, who are finance ministry nominees, either from government bureaucracy or finance ministry officials, and there are 4 people who are private businessmen.
Right.
Now, should we be handing over this kind of power to a board that constitutes private businessmen?
Well, the formation of the board is specified in the RBI Act. Okay. Every director on the board of the directors of Central Board of Directors is under some provision of the RBI Act, and therefore this is the board that has been inherited, and many vacancies on the board have not been filled for quite some time. The board is essentially at an advisory capacity for decision making. Take, for example, the basic mandate of the Reserve Bank of India in terms of monetary policy. Now we have a framework where monetary policy committee has been formulated, and the governor is not the ultimate decision maker as he used to be. The RBI monetary policy committee takes a decision on the changes in the interest rates and many other decisions. It is not the board, it is the monetary policy committee which takes the decision about monetary policy, and which is the primary mandate of the Reserve Bank of India or any central bank of India. But important thing to note here is that the role of the board is purely an advisory one.
Yes.
And therefore, I think the government or the act has taken care to see that
Yes,
all different kinds
but like you
of
pointed
interests are
out, Dr.
represented
Jadhav,
inside
like
the
you
agreement.
pointed out, in this particular case, the decisions that were made by the board today
My
perhaps
dear,
would not have
yeah.
been purely in an advisory role and perhaps would have been larger than that advisory role where they were
Right.
actually mediating.
No,
between- yes.
yeah, well,
But by relaxing these norms, PCA norms, you can definitely infuse more money in the market. So
How?
you have to increase the liquidity. So this is what the RBI board had been asking for.
So basically, what
But
you're
there is
saying,
nothing-
Mr. Ashwini
there is nothing
Mahajan,
big they are
is that the
asking. What they
RBI
are asking
board
is to
felt
do
that the
this.
RBI governor was being too strict, sir. It's a question that Saugata Ghosh has asked, which is where will the money come from? I see Narendra, Dr. Jadhav's hand up. Mr. Jadhav, Dr. Jadhav, I beg your pardon. Go ahead, please.
This money. Let me
also
complete.
want to
This
say
money
a couple of points.
is going to come from the banks themselves.
Right, Dr. Jadhav, please go ahead.
Yeah. A couple of points. As far as we are spending too much time on tinkering with the PCA. The prompt corrective action. What is very important is that we have not talked in this entire discussion about the credit squeeze to MSMEs, which employ as many as 12 crore people. So basically, that is a big problem. Making these PCA banks, 11 banks functional and letting them start lending and maybe commit the same mistakes that they have done again
Yes.
is the wrong way of looking at it. I think what is very important is that with the banks, we have 20 odd public sector banks and we have other private sector banks. What is required is that, like what happened during the 2008 global crisis, there was a special window that was opened in RBI for financing, window for NBFCs and housing finance companies. There was a window open, and that was used by them for onward lendings exclusively to MSMEs. That is the crux of the problem. And that is what has
Yes.
not been discussed in this, it has not come up in this discussion, nor it is clear whether that issue was taken up and discussed in the meeting that took place today.